Buenas and half a day, everyone. This is Gabriela and I'm currently studying at the University of Guam this semester. So it's currently 10:22 in the morning right now, and I'm just waiting for my car to cool down a little bit. I'm sitting in my car just running the AC, and it's about 85, 86 degrees this morning, and I have class in about half an hour. But I think I want to start off this week's video by talking a little bit about how this week has just been a lot of studying, and we're learning kind of like the last final, units of some of our classes. The classes I'm taking, we're doing, just a little bit more of new material, new content, just to finish things off before we get into our finals material and like studying for finals and our final exams. So like I said earlier, I think, just thinking about being at this point in the semester and just things kind of descending a little bit just in terms of demands and things like that. It definitely isn't as much as like the middle part of the semester in terms of being like intense and really demanding, even though at this point in time, my classes and the demands for these classes have definitely just become a part of my daily routine. And so I have weekly, monthly, bi-weekly deadlines that sometimes I have to meet, and that's all normal and that's all part of, like a regular college experience. But, when you think about this part of the semester and just taking in as much new material as you can, as much as the teachers are requiring before you start preparing for your finals and things like that, this also tends to be one of the most stressful parts of the semester because it's just constantly studying and prepping. While you're trying to take in this information in preparation for finals, maybe sometimes a couple weeks or like a week in advance, maybe even a couple days, especially in my experience, you're getting new material that you have to learn for the final exam or the final presentation or final obligation. But when you're in this period of time during this part of the semester where you're cranking out assignments left and right and you're just preparing for your final presentations or whatever, it also starts dawning on you that you're going to be leaving really soon. So while you're dealing with what's really routine, normal, preparation for finals and then learning new material on top of, preparing for these things, and it gets hectic, it's all routine and it's all regular. But I know for, those of us who are studying abroad at the moment, it becomes especially exacerbated because, you're dealing with the stress of having to prepare for finals week and doing these papers, but then you're also dealing with the stress of still being in a new place. And especially as this semester comes to a close, you're also dealing with having to tend to obligations around making sure that, you finish off your classes strong and you complete your classes, wherever you're studying abroad. And then you have to figure out some of the logistics for maybe having your credits that you took at your host campus transfer back over to your home campus. And what you're going to do with your stuff, maybe some of the stuff you bought while you were on exchange, how you're going to get back to your host campus if you haven't already, trying to figure these things out. It definitely exacerbates the stress of having to prepare like normally and regularly as you would for your final obligations. So I know for me that this has been a really emotional experience for me, and it's been such an eye-opening and really powerful, transformative semester for me, being back home and taking UOG classes and being at the UOG. Definitely being back within my community and reclaiming my relationship to my own indigenous language and my community and my history, as well as my culture, and really, just familiarizing myself with some of the sovereignty movements going on here and the independence movement. And I think about that. And, I've been thinking about that a lot, and it makes me emotional thinking about the fact that I'm going to be leaving in not even a month, maybe exactly a month from now. The plan was actually to stay here for a whole year at the beginning of this semester, but there were some family circumstances and some extenuating circumstances that the more I thought about it, and with a lot of consideration, I decided that I wanted to actually cut my study abroad trip a lot shorter than I thought I would initially be pursuing. And so I decided that I was only going to stay here for the fall semester, and I would return back to my home campus at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, for the spring semester of 2020. So maybe, as you can imagine, this was a lot of, it actually took a lot of weight off my shoulders just knowing that I'd made a decision and that I was going to go through with it. That was, of course, really, it was really nice to be relieved of that, and just knowing I'd made a decision. Of course, I knew I was going to be a lot more homesick when I left, and being homesick was one of the major reasons that I came out here in the first place. I understand that as a sophomore in high school, the year that I applied to the National Student Exchange Program, to be here during my junior year right now, that was something that I had needed to do during that time period. That was what I needed to do. It was just one of those things that I needed to do. And I think about a lot of the personal growth that I've experienced while I've been here, and just thinking about things that, what I needed to do then was coming out here and living here for a little bit and seeing my family, because I was so homesick and it was devastating and it was a lot of emotional stress. But, I recognize now that, especially, maybe last month, a couple weeks ago, that definitely, a lot more than a couple weeks ago, that what I need to do now is go back and, not necessarily leave, but, just alter my exchange a little bit to taper my needs right now. And the National Student Exchange and my supervisor, my director, who guides me, and he's wonderful. He's been really supportive and helpful in making this all possible, and just accommodating my needs, and especially extenuating circumstances that happened at the beginning of the semester. And he was really understanding of me wanting to come back. And, I didn't think that maybe pursuing, a study abroad opportunity would necessarily be shifty or different or a little challenging as it's been. But I have to say that I owe a lot to my NSE, the NSE, for helping me through this and just being supportive and helping me work through things that I didn't think I'd have to deal with. As you can imagine, deciding to cut my study abroad experience in half, just deciding to cut it down by a semester and kind of reducing it just to one semester instead of a year, definitely had some it definitely has some implications. And I had to look for a ticket back to my home campus a lot sooner than I would have initially, had I decided to go ahead and stay here as long as I was gonna. And so I had to look for a ticket, and I also had to arrange, of course, just figure out my paperwork and the credit transfer situation, and just 100% make sure that my credits here were gonna be able to apply to my program back in my home campus. And again, I was under the it was my understanding that I was going to be here for a full year, and when I changed my mind and I decided I needed to go back to Minnesota for a lot of reasons, a semester early, it cut the time that I had to tend to these other needs associated with going back and returning in half. And so I had to figure that out a lot sooner than I initially thought I would. At this point in time, I would say that I had to work a little bit to make sure my paperwork and all my official documentation, all the logistics surrounding credit transfer and, my transcripts sending over back to Minnesota, and also being diligent about checking, just staying updated with my home campus as to what's going on, any policy changes, just deadlines. Managing deadlines here, both with deadlines back on my home campus, got a little tricky, and it was a lot of navigating, and it was a lot of trial and error throughout the semester. But I think at this point, my biggest priority is definitely to finish off the semester strong, and I wanna do the best I can on my final exams, and I wanna be able to leave knowing that I got the most out of being here given the circumstances and being here in this semester. And just getting the most out of it, as much as I could have. So I would say this is a little bit of some of my commentary. I think some of my thoughts on my experience that I've had this semester up until this point. I know that from here on out, in these next coming weeks, it's going to be it's just going to be a lot of studying and preparation for final exams, and just finalizing everything. And I want to be on a good point. I want to be at a good standing point in order to feel confident and good about leaving this place, because I know for a fact that when I leave Guam, I am going to be homesick, and that's not something that's ever going to leave as long as I'm away from Guam. And just having a kinship and a tie to this land and being away from my community whenever I go back to the States that's always something really emotional for me. And just coupled with everything that I've learned at the UOG, being a lot more informed as an indigenous person of Guam, a Chamorro person, just being more informed by the things that I've learned at UOG and having this experience and reclaiming and re-strengthening my ties to the land and the ties to my people, my culture, and my history. It's gonna make that homesickness once I leave a lot more powerful, and I'm gonna try and learn to embrace that a little bit. As much as it's gonna be hard on me, I wanna embrace that a little bit. And I think I've been thinking about this, and I think in order to process that and do that in a healthy and productive way, I have to be able to feel confident about leaving this semester and leaving Guam ultimately on a good endpoint, if that makes sense. I think on that note, I'd like to end off this week's video just by kind of putting my thoughts out there a little bit on some of the personal growth and just some of the experiences that I've definitely had this semester, especially as the semester comes to an end. I want to give a huge thank you or saina masi to all who have been watching and keeping up with either my content or just general content from the NSE throughout the semester. Especially family and friends who have been watching my videos and supporting me through this journey through the NSE this semester as well. So once again, if you haven't yet, please be sure to like and subscribe to the National Student Exchange Program on YouTube and on social media. And saina masi again all for watching so much. Thank you all so much. I'll see you guys next week.